I think I speak for everyone when I say that a vast majority of our generation has spent a lot of time locked in and playing a video game for hours on end. It could be for fun, it could be to play towards a goal, it could even be a sport you could take seriously, or to simply escape. Life is stressful, it always has been. There's many responsibilities, pains, and traumas that will linger on for years and will often never go away. So sometimes, to avoid dealing with all of that at once, people will turn to different kinds of media to distract themselves. More specifically, video games. The term escapism refers to the act of distracting your mind into entertainment or activities to escape from life, and more often than not, a very unpleasant life. This is a very underlying state of being, as it's a very specific concept, meaning this idea wasn't portrayed much in the media industry, and it wasn't a common thing you would see. This was until 2011, a book was written called Ready Player One. It's a story about a dystopian world on the edge of collapse due to overuse of fossil fuels and global warming taking its effect on the planet. And it's a problem that society simply can't bring themselves to fix properly, so they turn to a virtual world called the Oasis, to quite literally escape and ignore reality into a fictional world, where you are in control of everything about yourself. In short, it's a virtual utopia. This book talks about the exaggerated horrors of locking yourself away for a prolonged period of time. It shows the effects of this concealment behavior by showing how relationships are changed and how society now functions. More importantly, it shows the development and growth as a person, instead of running back to a false reality. Now, why even mention this in the first place? Well, it's because it happens in real life too, just less exaggerated. According to research from the World Health Organization, they estimated that 3.8% of the world population experience diagnosed depression, and that isn't counting others who are undiagnosed and are most likely depressed, meaning a large sum of people are suffering in silence and need other ways to cope or heal. Video games are an easy and accessible outlet for escapism, and to forget troubles in the real world. Although, the only issue with this is that it's a temporary solution. When you pick up the controller and play for a few hours, all is well, sure. But when you turn off the game and disconnect from the call with your friends, then what? Life comes flooding back to you, and you're back to where you started. Then for most people, the cycle repeats again, and again, and again. There are two kinds of escapism: self-suppression and self-expansion escapism. Self-suppression escapism is about actively running away from unpleasant reality, emotions, and situations, as opposed to self-expansion escapism, where the person is instead learning and motivated from experiences. In this case, enjoying games and using it as a positive outlet to relax. A good example of a game that encourages self-expansion escapism would be Minecraft, an open-world sandbox game with essentially infinite possibilities. During the rise of COVID in 2020, Minecraft rose to popularity again too, due to the worldwide lockdown and multiple content creators playing the game at the same time. People have used Minecraft as another way to socialize instead of being in person, and because of the nature of Minecraft, a person can be playing for hours and not even realize it because of the game's versatility and content, ranging from building a base, mining for materials, simple exploration to playing on a Minecraft server with friends. It's a big comfort game for people to build their dream world. Overall, this is a game that appeals to those in isolation, and when played correctly, Minecraft players who use this game as an escape mechanism can find comfort and enjoyment out of this game. A different example of self-expansion escapism games will be ones with high difficulties or emotional stories one can relate to, and Celeste fits this category perfectly. Where Minecraft appeals to those who want creative freedom, many others play games that they relate to or enjoy the story of. Additionally, playing a difficult game that requires trial and error encourages players to put time into overcoming in-game challenges. Research from Abraham Maslow shows that people are drawn to games that require a certain sequence of needs, like psychological needs or safety needs before they reach a self-fulfillment end goal. They're more drawn to games that have a steep learning curve, and for players who played through Celeste, there's a huge correlation between those factors. Celeste is a platformer game that follows a young woman called Madeline as she climbs a mountain facing internal and external troubles from both the mountain and within herself. And it's that second part that gets players hooked. The character has problems. They view themselves as broken and not correct. We see this with interactions from Madeline and another character, Theo, and we begin to understand Madeline's backstory the more the game progresses, which encourages the player to play more. The entire reason why Madeline climbed the mountain in the first place is because she's struggling with anxiety and depression for an extreme amount of time, so she thought that the best way to tackle her mental health troubles is by climbing the mountain. But clearly it's not working. Madeline is trying to be self-expansive by attempting to use the mountain climbing as a fun outlet and challenging herself to take her mind off of her inner thoughts. However, the further she climbs up, it turns from a positive yet hard journey into a self-suppressive mental decline. Madeline's panic attacks, confusion, and anger towards herself is something that stays consistent throughout the entire story of Celeste, and this anger is embodied in a physical character, that being Madeline, a part of Madeline. In Celeste, Madeline is a constant mental and physical challenge to Madeline. She's constantly talking down to her, belittling her, as well as, actively trying to kill her. It's an internal conflict within a person taking physical form. It's an allegory for literally fighting her inner demons, and it's not healthy. Although, using your time to cool down and relax for a while is healthy. Medically reviewed information from WebMD states that video games can relieve stress, giving out positive benefits like mental stimulation and accomplishment. However, excessive use of your time to simply play video games all day is really bad. Not trying to sound like your parents here. It's exceptionally worse when it's your form of coping, or a way to handle serious factors like loss, depression, or life stress as I mentioned earlier. There are many downsides linked to extreme video game escapism. Examples like excessive gambling, psychological distress, addiction, physical health challenges, relationship challenges, and withdrawal. And this is only a fraction of downsides. Even more self-suppressive negatives will be losing communication in your social relationships entirely. Picture yourself in this situation. You come downstairs after long hours of pure gaming to get some food, and your family members are down there, commenting and judging you. Of course, it's their fault for talking about you so harshly and behind your back no less, but you also have to take this as an opportunity to realize why they said those things to you, and that you may have been doing the same song and dance repeatedly, all to a point where even your family is starting to fall out of touch with you. Escape can turn into an addiction, and an addiction can turn into obsession. Obsessing and prioritizing games instead of taking care of yourself is a flawed concept. It becomes a problem when it starts affecting our daily lives. We see this exact flaw happen in Ready Player One, when everyone is obsessed with abandoning their reality in favor of the oasis, which is why it's important to properly evaluate and determine whether your escapism is healthy or not. Looking back at previous details so far, Celeste shares a whole lot in common with the theme of Ready Player One, and more importantly, they simulate how a person can fix habits. Both of the main characters feel lost, so they escape to another place in hopes of becoming a better version of themselves or overcome a challenge to temporarily forget who they really are. Parzival, the main protagonist of Ready Player One, in addition to the world, were obsessed with neglecting their responsibilities, physical health and mental health for the oasis. So to fix themselves and society, they confronted their problems and they accepted that reality must come first, which is shown by Parzival and his group shutting down the oasis completely on Tuesdays and Thursdays for people to spend more time in the real world. Meanwhile, Celeste's way of handling Madeline's escapism to the mountain is to embrace Madeline, meaning accepting her flaws and her harsh feelings about Madeline. And in turn, Madeline herself is coming to a better state of well-being. This is represented visually with Madeline and Madeline fusing together and succeeding in climbing the mountain all the way to the summit, thus turning her self-suppressive escape into a self-expansive experience. By learning to embrace Madeline, she begins to mend social relationships, like apologizing to Mr. Oshiro, a side character that Madeline has wronged earlier in the game, and of course, mending her relationship with Madeline herself. During the final climb to the summit, we see dialogue from both of them, discussing their fear, their hopes, and coming to terms with their emotions. And in the end, they forgive one another, and Madeline finally feels whole. Through Parzival's and Madeline's actions, they have changed themselves for the better. They're far from perfect, but it's progress, and you too can make progress on your personal challenges. Playing games as a coping mechanism is perfectly fine, there's no shame in doing that. But what is most important to understand is to know when it starts turning from a stress relief into an obsessive need. Whether you want to prove something to yourself and you play Elden Ring, or if you have pressing deadlines and you play ranked matches in Splatoon instead, or if you're mourning a hard loss and you want to calm yourself down by playing Celeste to help ease the pain. It's alright to do these things, as long as you have the will to leave the game and take care of yourself in real life. It's only then you can begin to heal. Don't shut yourself away for long. Talking to someone about your problems is a necessary step to let out frustrations. You never know how long you can keep your emotions locked away for, so it's always best to let the emotions out early and suffer the consequences later on. Take it from me. As a person who played a lot as a way to forget my problems, I regret it. A lot. Instead of talking about my issues with my friends and my family, I picked up a controller instead. In conclusion, escape to a digital world may be temporary, but always remember to turn the game off.